getting some stuff loaded up into the nest. You will see, we'll go left to right, So National Parks Volume 3, it's out, ebook, paperback, Amazon, it's all there if you want it, Started this project in 2022 with the trip, was taking notes and kind of carving out the kernels of what becomes the narrative there, along with the photography and video, which will be coming out early next year. I'll do a series of videos, but for now, there's 7 parks in there, a slew of photos. I don't know, maybe 80 photos, I guess, somewhere around there, and all my writing. Next thing we've got, I'm doing a space tomorrow. It's the freeform one, the Wednesday, every other Wednesday afternoon. That's pretty chill. Whatever you guys want to come and talk about or promote or ask questions about, that's what we'll do over there. New podcast out every Monday. Put that out. That was from the writing session 2 weeks ago. And then on Thursday, also hosting Film 3 with Chris, as we like to do. So a bunch of stuff for this week. Makes sense to do a workshop and, kind of correspond our progress with these workshops and the release of, my newest book. But as it is so far, it's still early morning on the West Coast. Heidi, how are you? What are you doing?
I'm drinking coffee. How are you doing?
I'm also drinking coffee.
Costco is selling this Pete's Alpine blend. I highly recommend it. It's good. I'm kind of a Pete's coffee fan, so.
An Alpine blend. I'm trying to think of if I've ever seen coffee growing
in the Well, it's a winter blend. They're calling it Alpine. Just let it go. It's marketing, maybe.
I'm perceiving it.
It's promotion. They're promoting it for winter. Thus the concept Alpine in a blue bag.
I'm seeing it.
See, I'm on task.
Yeah, this is good. How is your progress coming along before we jump into it? It's been a day since you and I talked about it, but it's been a month since we talked about it here on the program with the people, and also for those of you that are hanging out, if you want to come up on stage and talk, you're more than welcome to. This is very much an open conversation. We're just kind of getting things rolling for the meantime.
Well, I am. My main focus right now is to get, a serviceable version of the audiobook done, and I'd say I've got about. See, there's 46 chapters, not including like an aftermath and such that's in the book.
So 47 chapters, because you got to do that aftermath chapter.
Yeah, well, I'd say that we're on, I can put this up for, say, beta listening. I'm about just right around the halfway mark. I mean, there's a lot of stuff recorded, but most of it's recorded. There's a significant amount recorded. It's a matter of going through and making sure that it's done right, and the challenges of recording when, basically you're teaching yourself the process as you're doing the process. So,
and you're getting good at it.
I think so. I'm getting better at it. I mean, it's like anything, practice, practice, practice. But one of the challenges I have, maybe I don't even want to talk about that. I mean, if we're just talking about projects, but I'll just sort of as a subset, is when you have to do punch-ins. So one of the things I've noticed that when you're reading it is you make mistakes. You'll just misread a sentence and not realize it at the time.
Do you?
Yeah, you do. Well, I don't know. I mean, for whatever information.
No, it happens to all of us. We all make those mistakes.
Oh yeah. Well, so you have to go back and punch it in, and the thing that's hard about that is not so much punching it in, but getting the sound quality to match the original recording.
Can be tough.
It's really tough. And I mean, for some reason, sometimes it's easier than other times. So it just seems to be, I don't know exactly what the
There's
issue.
a lot of factors. So most notably, we as human beings, our body responds to temperature and barometric pressure, and that changes our sinuses, and that changes the quality of our voice when we're recording. So that's part of it, right? And then the microphone, it is also so what's inside of a microphone, there's a little diaphragm, and it is also responsive to temperature and weather and stuff like that. And so between those two things, you get a lot of interaction and variable there. Also, the environment. If you even move things slightly at all, then you are going to be getting a slightly different recorded vision of the environment on the microphone. If you are that first time you are 2 inches away, and the next time you are 3 inches away, then you are going to introduce more variables. So all of these things end up resulting in slight differences of audio quality as it's recorded. And, that's just the nature of it. I would say you try to control for that as much as possible. I use a particular environment for my audiobook reads. That's the same fundamentally every single time, but at the same time, I have to set up that equipment. I might sit a little bit different. The environment's the same, but again, there's still factors. My body is reacting to the environment as well, so all that stuff happens. And then there's other times where I'm less particular about that. So I, will be less concerned with trying to nail it and being perfect, because it's not critical. It sometimes, here we are inside of this space that is audio focused, and I'm not, I want it to sound nice for everybody, but I'm not going to try to make it as involved a process as when I'm doing an audiobook, right? Even though this is an audio discussion. Again, if you want to come up and talk, give us an update on your progress as we begin to transition into the conversation. You're more than welcome to. We like to hear from you. This is a way of us checking in, not only on the things that we're working on, but ideally for you guys as well. And if you have stuff you're promoting or whatever, that's what we like to do here. We do have a conversation targeted for today, and it'll be kind of two parts. Not only today, but then next week we'll kind of extend it from the other side of the conversation. But for today, releasing and promoting your book, that part can get lost in the process. There's this comparison I always make. When you're a writer, you write words. You're putting words onto paper or onto a screen, and we focus in the writer's block on being a writer. But releasing and promoting a book is really about being an author, having a finished book that people can consume through their eyes and their ears, some tactile sense of being cozy in their reader's nook, their breakfast nook, looking out the window on an autumn day with a cup of hot chocolate. That's all of a sudden it becomes tangible for the readers. And making that transition from thinking like a writer to thinking like an author is, I would say, very much about releasing and promoting your book. Heidi, what do you think?
Um, Well, I don't disagree with you. I mean, we could use me as a case study in bad promotion because I make no effort at it, if that helps anybody.
Well,
But I mean, I'm serious. But in seriousness, yeah, because I mean, I think I'm going to try and turn that around when I get this audiobook done. So, you made some good points about that sort of thing in regards to promoting. And I will freely admit that I'd rather be on the writer side of it than the author side of it. It's because the author side of it is it's promoting, it's marketing, it's all that stuff. It's all the business side. And I suppose one must make peace with that in order to proceed in this particular endeavor, shall we say.
well, if you're going to keep doing it, right, you might as well
Yeah. Oh yeah, I get
build
it.
out the ecosystem.
I get it. Totally get it. It's a different kind of world building. So, I mean, I guess that's the best way to look at it. You have to build the world of your author world along with your story world. So, I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting from and a lot of it. I don't know if you want to keep going on how to do that.
Yeah,
And
for sure. We can talk with like, let's go into like pre-release planning, right? And I'll use the stuff that I've been doing lately as an example. And whether or not all of that gets that crosses into the divide of like awareness for people. Well, we're a good test subject. How many of the people here hanging out in writer's block over the months that we've been doing it since the summer were aware that I was putting out an ebook for the Fall of Tartaria, or that the audiobook was coming out soon after that? Did I do a good job in the pre-release promotion of talking that up here within our community, right? Second would be, did I do enough raising awareness for volume 3 of the National Park series? I talk about that one significantly less, but I've been talking about it significantly longer. So it's been something that has been on my timeline, on the project timeline for, this kind of development of it really got going hard a year ago, just over a year ago. So we were looking at the thread that I was posting on that account since October in 2023. And every so often, I would put out a new little picture of progress and talk about how things were coming along. If you follow that, then you saw it. Sometimes I retweet them. Maybe that came across. Maybe it didn't. Maybe I didn't do enough of that to get that out in front of people. And in the sense of like the pre-release planning for a book launch, I didn't do enough of like talking it up. I have a cycle of things that I do when I am releasing this stuff, such as like if you look at the tweet in the nest all the way to the left, right? There's a video there. So I put together these promotional videos, usually show the cover, do a little bit of voiceover, and that stuff typically comes out the day of release. Should I be doing more in advance of that? Well, probably. Ideally we're doing as much as we can, but at the same time, like Tartaria snuck up on me this year. I didn't know I was going to do it. It wasn't on my radar when I started the year, and it soaked up a little more time than I would have probably liked. But at the same time, it deserved it, to play around with it and make it happen. It has had a long cycle of awareness building from the video release on April 1st all the way through the audiobook release last month. Maybe it soaked up the cultural purchase for other things that I do along the way. But now, for the next X number of months, I'm going to be talking about the release of volume 3, and to look forward and then also think in terms of pre-release planning. So the ebook and the paperback are out yesterday, right? The audiobook's not out. So here's me saying, before this audiobook comes out, it's mostly recorded, it's not produced, now the people that are here are aware that there is going to be an audiobook. A lot of people don't know about that project because it only pops up every 2 years as I put out a book and then an audiobook and then a series of videos, and then I release a soundtrack, of the music that I wrote for the videos. So for the next 4 to 6 months, I'll be launching new components of volume 3 and helping to continue to build awareness for it and promote it. Inside of that, there's a lot of other things that you kind of want to be thinking about, like the circuit of writing and book oriented spaces on Twitter. Valuable, right? All that stuff that happens here, these live conversations that we do, it's a way to talk and promote our work, but it's also a way to explore the ideas around them, regardless of like what we wrote or what we intend to write. We can have these, meta dialogues about our thinking processes or our writing processes and explore some of that skill. That becomes, in a sense, awareness building, promotion for us as writers, and ideally as authors further down the line as we put material out into the world. And that's something too that we have talked about in the past, where it's like you kind of want to be releasing consistently, but you also need a decent body of releases for people to find you and to understand that like you are actively engaging in this pursuit. Let's shift over to Heidi. Like your first book, tell us how you titled and released it.
How I titled and released it?
Yeah, because I think it's an important aspect of people's perspective, and this is something that we had talked about yesterday a little bit.
Yeah, how I title. What do you mean specifically by title? Like, what is the title? Why I decided on the title?
No, I mean, why is it part of the Songless series? It's book 1 of the Songless series. That aspect.
Why did I do that? Well, because I that's just the. I guess I viewed it more complete than it presents itself. Does that make sense? Because this is something. So to me, I mean, it was always going to be songless. It developed out of an idea. Um, and so, but I had written much more than is in book 1, and I realized that I needed to just break it down. Instead of attempting to publish Gone with the Wind, all 900 pages or such. I'm going to break it down. So I broke down the first part. So I mean, so for the plus side of that is it from me looking at it is, I've broken it down so there'll be like Songless the Desert. The next one will be Songless the Fort. Um, and so it'll go from that in that world. So the world I've created, I've decided to call Songless. So that's my world that I work in when I'm writing. At least, currently. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I've got the fort written, but in editing and such, and I've got a rough draft of the third book. So the point is for me was to do it that way, but you pointed out some problems with that. So I mean, pointing it out as a series, like, and these are problems I've heard before, right? The idea that, 1, it's long. 2, it's unknown. 3, is it a cliffhanger? No, I hate cliffhangers. I wouldn't write a cliffhanger. but because I just think that's disingenuous for the most part to end a book on a cliffhanger unless you've got everything waiting um, and ready to go. Then it's kind of okay because you're not really ending it. You're just, you know, buy the next book. But so yeah, I mean, in terms of titling it, that's why I did it because I saw it in a larger scope because I already have that scope sort of printed out for myself. So that's one of the reasons I did that. And the other question was, how did I promote it?
Well, I mean, you're fine to talk about that. I would interject with I made a similar move with exploring our national parks volume 1. Here's the thing why that even happened. I didn't intend to put out more than one book at the outset. It's just that when I was looking to do the follow up the year after I did the Chicago 1893 book, I had what, I don't know, 15 or 16 parks, something like that, that I had photos and written for. Some were in better shape than others in terms of them being more done and more gatherable into a book, let's say. So I took the most done 9 parks, and that became volume 1. And then I just left all the other stuff so that I could get another book out. Uh, I then didn't actually return to that manuscript until over a year later. So that wasn't the very next book that I put out. I put out a marketing book next, but that's the cycle that I've started to do with that particular project. But at the same time, like, it's not, it probably wasn't good to call it volume 1 out of the gate. I did it, and I made that mistake. Is that the way to go? I probably wouldn't do that again, or I wouldn't do that if I knew now, or if I given what I know now, I won't do that again. Let me phrase it that way. I'm going to look at other ways to do that, and we can update our projects in terms of the manuscript and the cover, and reload that stuff to KDP. So it's not as if we can't go back and make changes. So that's something to consider too. Luckily, here I am. The series has expanded. There are 3 volumes. I delivered on that promise, that was started in 2020 when I put out that first book. But gosh, if you stuck through all the way to now, that's a long time, to
Well,
hang around.
might I add that the other thing is with a national park series, I mean, people aren't going to be concerned that you're going to talk about, say, Yosemite and only talk about half of Yosemite and put the other half of Yosemite in the next book. They're going to realize, I mean, it's obvious when you do that that it's clearly I'm putting 3 or 4 parks in this book. I'll put 3 or 4. It makes sense, right? But I see your point. It doesn't necessarily work, and I now understand why they don't. A lot of books who are a series don't point that out because it kind of creates this. Well, as you said, it's like, well, I'm going to wait till the whole thing's out because I don't want to get, I want it all at once, which I think is something to consider if you're doing a series. I mean, even if you've got it planned out, even if you're not throwing cliffhangers out at people, um, obviously, I think if you're doing a series, you can put a little some seeds for what's coming next. But the these books they do like that are like duets and such, where it's you buy the first book and then it just ends with something horrible happening. Like he's on a cliff. Will he fall off, or will he? He's hanging off the edge of a cliff. Is he going to fall off, or that kind of thing. I don't like that kind of thing. I think that's kind of disingenuous to somebody. It's like just put it all in one book. But
I don't know if I've
so, I
ever
mean,
run across a book quite that blatant.
well, I'm just using it as you understand, right? I mean, you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm just using it as a extreme example to illustrate my point. So that sort of thing. So I mean, I'm thinking maybe I should take, I was thinking when I first did it that maybe it would be a good idea to put, to clarify what order to read these books in, but maybe that's not a great idea until all the books are out.
Maybe.
I'm thinking maybe that might be better. So then that way people aren't sort of put off by it. Does that make sense? I'm thinking maybe that might be better for promoting.
I'm not
So,
sure. I mean, are you planning on doing non-sequential entries in the story? That's something to consider.
well, yeah, I mean, I'm considering it right now. Is my thing. I'm trying to decide if that's a good idea or not. If you're doing a series, how much do you clarify that? And then maybe after if you finish it at some point, then you can sort of put the whole list together. But because it's always been and I did it because it's always sort of an issue for me when if I find some author, they've got some series. It's like which book is first. It's never clear to me is the other side of it once
Interesting.
everything out. I mean, so I'll be like, I'll have to go up to someone's website. It's like, what order do I read these books in?
So the
So that's
one
why I did
big
it out.
example of that, I would say, would be Narnia. Obviously, like there's the Pevensie children and their very chronological narrative. There's the order that he published the books in, and then there is the overarching chronology of the 7 books within Narnia that I prefer. I think that's legitimately the most interesting way to read it. Ricky, you're up on stage. You're hanging out. We're talking about releasing and promoting our books. You've got books that you have released and promoted. Would you like to reflect on some of the things that we have talked about so far? Otherwise, we'll keep going. We'll keep talking other stuff. We got a whole outline, but I figure I'd throw it over to you while you're hanging out.
Well, thanks a lot, Michael and Heidi, for having me up here. These spaces are always cool. Try to take time out of my busy day to join them. There's always something interesting being discussed. There's no exception here today. I have a bunch of books. I have like 6, 7 books on Amazon, and I have other books that I'm bringing to a conclusion for Royal Road. When it comes to this series stuff, I mean, I have this Book of Draken trilogy, which is part of the Afternities series. There are 4 Masroth books. The third one should be coming up around the holidays. My editor's coming around the bend on that, and there's already a cover. So I should probably lean into that a little bit more because it's the spine to the Afternities series. And like there's going to be a Book of Draken 1, 2, 3, like a Draken trilogy, and then I leave little gaps throughout that trilogy for novellas because George Martin, rather than writing these Leviathan books anymore, he's been interested more in novellas. Novellas are kind of like retronautic. They were huge in the 60s and 70s, and then they kind of like dropped off for these big behemoth fantasy books that are like over 300,000 words. And it turns out that those are difficult to write. Who would have thought? You know, I wrote 180 plus words, 180,000, 180K plus words, I should say. Maybe I could say it correctly. That would be helpful this year. And, the idea of over 300,000 words, you're just plugging away at a book. Like, I mean, if you write full time, that's one thing. But the Draken books are a darling. They came from a role playing game that I ran back in the late 90s with some very cool friends. And I can't just lay that on the chopping block of some publisher to just go, well, let's make it, let's have it. So, MJ was talking about Kill Your Darlings. So this Wargate thing came out of Kill Your Darlings, and now I'm designing 10 of those, like 3 trilogies and a finale type thing. Will I live to write it? Who knows? Will the world be here? Not sure. I think it's nice to have a series. I think coming round the bend with this. I like the idea of a series or a franchise. And I was led to believe, I don't really know shit from shampoo about anything really, but I was led to believe overwhelmingly that publishers like franchises. They like a series. They like an ongoing thing, especially with fiction, specifically fantasy or whatever, because they all want it to be the Lord of the Rings, or they all want it to be the Dune, the Duneverse. They want it to be this giant thing that could make them famous and pallets of money. So I just kind of like go with that. I have like 10 Wargates I've designed. The first one's all done. I just wrapped it up the other day. So pop your corks. You know what I'm saying? I just got the edit done. And I have 9 more to write. I have like 18,000 of part 2, which I'm probably not going to write for the next year.
Nah, you'll be done with that by March.
Well, I got to tell you, if I could write full time, that's how I'd be thinking too, Michael. Really. I work full time and I write. I just kind of go at it hammer and tongs because it's my bliss. But marketing, no, I'll be honest. I suck at marketing. I try, like I promote, like I think I'm better at promoting, but I'm not very good at that either. Like I do podcasts, like I do spaces and podcasts of various sorts. And now I have a podcast on Spotify, Mount Timeless Podcast. And that's been a lot of fun, doing workshops with Paulette and working with Tom. That last show we had the traction on that was amazing. The numbers. I probably should lay the flowers at your feet, Michael, because you're the one that has the algorithm. You have a bit in the algorithm's mouth.
What did I do?
You're being there because you have all this stuff all over the place. I mean, you're on like multiple platforms, and your stuff is, I think, showing more than a little success. So we had like 555 people tune in the other day. That's not me. That's not me.
On the Twitter space?
Yeah.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, beyond dope.
I don't know that I did anything about that. I don't think that was me.
Well, take the credit.
Let's get them in here today.
I was about to say, I was kind of, well, look, all I know is when we did that show and we were talking about Mount Timeless Review, and you read your piece, that was also a good vibe. That like the thing you read was great. You read it well. Like, marketing books is a commercial aspect of authorship, and that's true. I'm not good at that. I'm really not, and I don't even really want to be. Like, I'm scared of it. If I had a full-time schedule, I would be swinging at that left and right, and I still do my best, but promoting is like you're trying to. There's like an aspect of street cred. It's not just like a Saturday morning commercial with the Trix Rabbit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's also like, well, I read this thing. Do you think it sounds cool? Like, do you respect what I'm doing? Like, I kind of prefer that, but I'm not good at either. So one of the reasons I'm here is to learn from you fine people, because I can only imagine that you guys know what's up more than I do.
Well, we do it together. This is something that Heidi and I were talking about last night, is to utilize these releases as experiments, right? And to be able to test in the market with the pieces that we release. There's the month 1 retail sales that always spike. And then there's the long tail. For me, over the last handful of years, I find that the audiobooks do numbers in the long tail where they get found via subscription services and library usage and things like that. So for me, that has become a valuable aspect of putting out any of the books. Obviously, like for a lot of the stuff that I do, it's highly pictorial. So I want people to be engaging with the imagery as much as the words. That physical release or the ebook version does that, where the audiobook version is very much me reading the editorial and just kind of bringing some of those stories into the listening space and hopefully decently or well at times. There's things that I think work better than others in terms of like aspects, particular parks or chapters of things work better that way. There's other material that fiction I think works particularly well as audiobooks. Some of the marketing books that I have out, I don't necessarily recommend as audiobooks. I don't know that that's the easiest way to follow along with what's going on there, but they are actively getting listened to. And that I think is, I'm glad that people find them however they find them, from wherever they're coming from to engage with that stuff. That to me is making it worth continuing to do books and putting them out there. I have a need to create this stuff. Doing all of the packaging to put it into the market, that's as much work as merely writing it and taking photos. Gathering stuff up and productizing it is far more meticulous, because it's going to be in front of people and you want them to have a good experience with it.
Mount Timeless or Ricky, I think, I think one of the things Michael has going for him is that, he has small products, but he's got a bunch of them. So there's like a lot. It shows, even though they're not like you have, you're like 20 minutes or 10-minute videos and such. You've got all these different products, and it sort of shows, it gives you a grounding regardless of the length. So I think that's something to consider. And you were touching on it when you were talking about novellas and short stories and doing things like that, that sort of and that's one of the things we were talking about. I was talking with Michael last night. He's like, you need to write something, you need to write like a short story, you need to put more stuff out there so that you appear to be serious about what you're doing. um and I think that's a really good point, and I think that might be a really important point right now, because people can, you know there's some gravitas to that. Wouldn't you agree? And I think that that is what makes difference. Um, I don't know. And I think the novella thing, I already I had something in the back of my mind. I'm going to probably try and do that, because like a novella is just, 10,000 words, you could technically write that in well, I write when I'm sitting down seriously writing, I go like 1,000 words a day. I could do that in like 2 weeks. So, as opposed to me spending like a year writing a novel, because I write these bloody long novels. So, yeah, I have a 400-page book, which is, there's gravitas in that alone, but at the same time, it's just one thing. And as when we were talking yesterday, you pointed out, Michael, it's a big ask of people to sit down and read a 400-page book. Most people are like, I don't know who the hell you are. I don't know anything about you. And all you got is this behemoth, shall we say, and you're asking me to go look at this. That's a big ask for someone I don't know. It's kind of like saying, hey, let's go out on this first date, and that means we're obligated to date for the next 6 months. I mean, it's, is that a fair? kind of analogy, do you guys think? So I'm thinking that these smaller projects, throwing some of that stuff out there, um, is maybe an important part of authorship, giving people, samplers, shall we say, before they decide they want to, go all in. What do you guys think?
Now, I'll put it to you this way: I have a cyberpunk novella, Babbletron, After the Fire, and it's a tasty little thing. It's reasonably priced. I think the trend to novellas is like it's better. It's better when you have a bunch of little stuff. You can put more of it out. You can concentrate more on it, and then people will read the shorter stuff, and then they'll decide if they want to jump in with Nessie. This big giant thing. I like writing big giant novels. I love chapters. I love throwing them down. That's why maybe this Royal Road thing is going to be cool because of the serialization, like that factor. Because it's like these people go chapter to chapter, and then if they don't like you, they say why. They write like a review. It's like this sophisticated Yelp thing where they tell you, oh, I like your grammar, like your this, like your that, and then people can read all of that, interface with it, comment it. That's why I think that's good, because it's like word of mouth. We are big nobodies. I mean, we have various levels of success, but none of us are where we want to be. We're reaching. So it's like, how does one get there? You either write a big, amazing thing that everybody suddenly loves, right place at the right time type of thing, right mood maybe. But if you have a trillion little things, I mean, I write 30K novellas. And I just wrote the short story collection. I don't like writing short things. I like big, giant. Like I like a horizon. That's like the vestiges of pantserdom in me.
So this is something that I've been toying with, and I will. I don't know if I've talked about it publicly, but what I'm kind of thinking about doing to build up catalog is putting out a short audiobook once a month through the entirety of next year. It's possible for me to do. Um, will I accomplish that? Maybe. I'm looking at what I've got sitting around right now and the other things that I want to accomplish that I already had in mind for next year. And I'm looking at ways of repackaging some things, polishing up some stuff that's sitting already recorded, and then seeing how I can and repurpose some things that I've done even this year, particularly a variety of video projects and stuff like that. See if I can mine anything out of that. I don't know. So that to me, like if I put out 12 audiobooks, 12 audiobook releases next year, that would just be remarkable. Is it good to flood those places with my releases? I don't expect anybody to buy all 12 of those. Even the people that love me, I don't expect them to pick up every single one of those audiobooks. Maybe they don't speak to them. They're not really made for them. So the thing there is people are finding stuff through search or recommendation, these algorithms, word of mouth, being pinged by notifications through social. And this is a lot of kind of like what you want to do in terms of building an online community or a community of readers around your work for pre-release buzz. Here things are as we continue to scratch out progress on our work. There's only so many hours in a day, right? And if we can take advantage of, say, like the email lists that we develop and drive traffic that way to when we're doing something new, maybe things fall through the crack and people only remember when it's right in their email and you give them a link to jump right into Amazon to purchase this stuff. That's perfectly viable. Make it easy for people to engage with you too. Like, don't hide it behind some Rube Goldberg machine or whatever. So that's a lot of how I think about that. Coming back around to the point about like smaller releases more often. Again, when you're kind of peppering things out into the platforms that people read on, whether they're audiobooks or ebooks or whatever, there's more likelihood that they are getting notifications for that. And also that there are additional keywords or terms that are getting used, whether those are like in the background or if they're in the title or descriptions, using all of these, being writers and using our words and making them available for people and the machines that are sifting through all this stuff all of the time to be able to surface it for people. That's, really what we want to be doing. Funny thing, I'm putting up a series of videos on a platform over the last week, and I didn't have a description for it. I was like, and the platform wasn't requiring one, or at least it wasn't telling me that it was requiring one. So here I am trying to pass this video series through their platform and publish it as a playlist, and it wouldn't do it. It wouldn't do it. It wouldn't do it. Day after day, it's not doing it. Finally, I'm like, well, what if I just toss in a description into here? And it went through. Terrible description that I wrote, but it's there. This metadata flows through all of these servers, but their design should have informed me that that was required, because it did about some of the other components there. But again, I should have had a description available that was good and targets all the keywords that I'm looking for. That's my mistake. Hopefully I don't do that again.
Well, I have a question on Royal Road. How does Royal Road work? Because Michael, you brought that up to me,
Yeah.
and
Ricky should
Rick,
talk about it because he's
you're
engaging
on
with
it.
it.
So what do you think? I mean, how are you posting stuff on there? Does it work sort of like Substack, or what's the process and in that?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I'm still getting my ducks in a row for it. What I've seen so far is you want to have. Let me just pull up a file really quick because I have some information that I looked up. According to, I talked with this one cat. Yeah, this is it. Hold on. Sorry, folks. All right, where is it? Well, anyway, since I'm having trouble locating this thing, there's just too many damn thumbnails in my life. Royal Road is a postable kind of site. There it is. Maybe it's the one that says Royal Road on it. I don't know. Oh boy, this is a hell of a Tuesday. All right, so you want to have like 40 chapters worth of stuff, basically like a 40 chapter range. It's assumed that you're going to post per chapter, which is only logical in a serial. And what the guy said was you want to try to do 3 books at once, because this maximizes traffic and coverage, and you can really build yourself up in a huge way. You got to have pretty cool looking cover art. It can't be anything shabby. All the stuff on there looks real dreamy and like professional. And then there's this tag thing. Okay. They have tags for like subgenres. So like there's lit RPG, which is, I'm going to list the ones that supposedly is that the stuff I'm doing. Lit RPG, progression, game lit. Progression is like you're gaining relics and your characters are power gaming, like they're becoming more powerful. And it just so happens that I write in a genre that I call power fantasy, which most of my books are. My MCs are, they're like, there's tension because they're reaching for power causes them trouble. So they're always in the middle of something. But the goal behind that is like you're really dialing in to specific subgenres of fantasy. And if you do this, like if I drop these three books, like my phase one is Wargate 1, Kyrum 6, Chronicles of Kyrum 6. Wargate's it's a power fantasy, cosmic fantasy, space opera, lit RPG. So those are all ways that I would be listing those things. So anybody at a glance could go, oh, I like that subgenre. Then they'll dive into my description, which is like an 80-word blurb, like real quick. Like I was reading them, they're all on the shorter side. It's meant to just draw you in. Once you're in, then it's like it's chapter, and then it's like they want more. Just like me at a buffet, they want more. So big giant books posted in cereal is actually like what these people want. That's what they're hungry for. You could see their eyes glowing in the darkness, according to these people. Like they're ready to tear this stuff apart. And if you attach your Patreon to it, the blessings are supposed to flow. And then it's all networked to your Amazon stuff on the Patreon. So people who go to your Patreon with the need to contribute, maybe they don't want to give you money, they want to buy your other books because they want more of your content. So it seems to me that it's going to be like an algorithmic super continuum where like all my stuff is networked. If people want to find me, they can. If they want to talk about me, they can. If they want to give me money, they can. So that sounds swell. If I had known about this long ago, I would have been doing this then. My goal was to do 10 books on Amazon. Like I said, I'm on 6, 7, or 8 or something. I forget. There's all those novels, there's a series, there's a bunch of other novels, there's a poetry book, a short story collection. We got the review, Masraw 3 is coming out. Once I get to 10, I'm going to kind of chill on Amazon. I'm going to try to do the Royal Road thing, and I'm going to try to go the query route, try to get legit, because I think it's the more the merrier. So Royal Road is really cool because of its community, and people are supposedly very, very, they post, there's response, there's a massive amount of conductivity, and it's good for the authors and it's good for the readers, for the consumers, because they get to rate your stuff. Some people might be scared of that. I'm not scared of it. I think because book reviews on Amazon, you're in a paradox. You're not supposed to ask for them. There's so many things like this in the publishing industry. It's like, well, you can't get published until you've been published. What? That's what? Ridiculous. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that sounds like a really gift wrap way of saying I'm a gatekeeper and I don't like you. That doesn't sound like it's, oh, Ricky, why are you talking about publishing this way? I don't know. It's frustrating. Makes no sense. That's why I got to go to things like Royal Road, because my street cred's got to be there, and I got to be somewhere for my street cred to be there. So it's like I wrote these giant books trying to sell them, and I'm probably going to take losses money-wise by not having them on Amazon, but I'll gain in street cred. I'll gain traction as far as people knowing who I am.
Well, here's the thing to consider too. Like, why not re-release your previous material on Royal Road and just stagger out what you're putting there? You don't even have to put it all out, but then say like, look, I'm going to do the first 5 chapters of this book on Royal Road over the next month or month and a half, or however long, and then if you really like it, it's available to you on Amazon.
Yeah, no, I'm down. I mean, on my Patreon, the one I'm having designed, I'm basically going to say, like, well, if you're reading this here and you want to own it, or you don't want it on an app, like you actually want it, because there's people that still like books.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, pay here, put down on Patreon towards this goal that I have, where when I get the money, then I'll put this book that's on Royal Road, I'll put it on Amazon, because I like don't get me wrong, I like ebooks and I like platforms like Royal Road and all that, but I like a book. I like to hold a book. And it gives me a sense of satisfaction.
I just feel like you've already got a catalog, and you might be like using Royal Road a little bit backwards, in the sense that like you're going to release new books exclusively on a platform, as opposed to taking advantage of the platform to extend the release of previously released material. Do you know what I'm saying? I, I I think that like there's a way of building audience with Royal Road and incorporating Patreon with not only the existing content but new content going forward that kind of builds up to Amazon releases if you want to do things that way. But at the same time, like if you're already you've got sunk costs in your existing books, whereas like the new stuff that you're intending to release, those might be things that you can experiment with, as opposed to making the Royal Road readers kind of your like testing, or you're giving them exclusivity. Like that to me seems a little bit backwards, that angle, particularly because you have so much material, and like there's no reason not to like just jump in with the existing material today, as opposed to saying like, well, when I get this done, I'll start putting this new material out on Royal Road. I think like you've already got a back catalog that you could basically be using Royal Road to seed interest for your existing catalog and driving sales on Amazon from Royal Road, and potentially, audience building on Royal Road as well as your Patreon in that way.
Well, I mean, look, you may be right. I don't really, to be fair, I don't really know what I'm doing. This is a brand new thing for me. But the research that I've done, and it's not just like obviously it was YouTube, but I also talked with people. Like I had a phone call with this guy who was recommended to me, and he was telling me about Royal Road as a reader and the things that he's seen. And he was claiming that you can make like huge bushels of money if you do it by this certain formula, and it was the formula that he was advocating. So then I went on YouTube and I verified it to see if it was anything but pickled nonsense, and it turned out that it's this is how people do it. Now I know what you're saying. I could take like Nidhogg Chronicles and put the first 10 chapters of that on there, and then be like, "Hey, you silly geese! If you want any more, you got to go buy my book, and it's reasonably priced." Now that maybe I will end up to that point, but I'm trying to follow this formula that these people put forth. Like they're like, if you do this and you got it. Like if you have a voice and people dig it, then this is how you spiral up. So I'm
How?
following that. I don't know,
No, that's fair. How long? I don't know how long Royal Road has been around, and I also don't know how long those those writers have been using it. Right. So like there might be some bias that exists within those assumptions, in the sense that if they were early adopters, and it's been around for a long period of time, then it's grown, and we're seeing maybe the result of like their being early adopters and the platform growing and their audience growing in accordance with the platform. I don't know. Like I can't say that that's true or not. I'm
Yeah.
just speculating.
No, I'm hip. I know what you mean, because there's all these bubbles, and I don't really know how long this thing's been around. I just know that it still is doing what it's doing.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on. I actually got a split now, but this has been a great show. Thank you, Michael and Heidi, and everyone. Take care.
Yeah, I hope Royal Road works out for you, because I really do think that like that is an ideal platform for the style of content that you're making, not only in terms of genre, but just the absolute wealth of words and chapters that you have. So like it does seem like a great fit, and you have so much stuff that like trying out different methods of releasing it there is worth experimenting with, you know. Well, Ricky's gone, but that's all right. Yeah, and I would say Heidi, kind of the same boat for you in that sense. Like you've got a huge chapter book and are working on the follow up. You know, there would seem to be ways of taking advantage of it.
So I was trying to understand when Ricky was talking. I just want to welcome everybody in. Potato Spirits, Robin, good to see you guys. Misty, Speaker Cone. I want to welcome you guys in. If you want a mic, please come up and join us, unless you just enjoy listening to me and Michael banter. But so I sort of was looking at Royal Road while Ricky was talking, and I want to understand a couple things about it. So like first, it doesn't look like you get paid. It looks like you just put your chapters up there and people read them and then maybe decide if they want to drop some money in a Patreon. Is that yeah, that's correct? Okay. So
Fundamentally.
that's one. What?
Fundamentally, yeah.
Fundamentally, yeah. So I mean, there's that. And then the other one, so that's something to consider if that's what you want to do. I mean, and it can make sense if you're just trying to get your work out there. Or if you're someone like Ricky who's got a big catalog, he doesn't have to put everything up there. But and it also seems like it's very much geared towards fantasy, dark fantasy and sci-fi. When I was just going over it, I don't know if anyone's got more experience with it. But I mean, it looks interesting, but I mean, there's a big I'm just curious about I mean, are people editing stuff? Are they just writing stuff and throwing it up right after they write it? I mean, what's going on over there?
It ranges. I would say there's people throwing slop on there, and then there's people that are really trying to put refined work on it. You know, it's self-publishing in an episodic sense. So, and it's on the web, so it's not like it's not a gate kept scenario. It's really audience approval. Like either you're able to get people compelled by your story and your writing, or you're not. And because of the way that it's kind of structured, as like you're going to break down what you have into segmented releases, people kind of tune in for that and subscribe for those new releases. So that, you know, that's something that I think a lot of readers like, because they can expect something new on a regular basis. It's really, you know, it's tough for me. I don't write that way. I don't have that sort of regimen or capacity, I guess. But again, like, and that's a good point that you make too, right? Royal Road is not necessarily facilitating payments. In fact, they might charge for some portions of their service. I'm not 100% clear. I've read a little bit and dabbled around, realized it's not for me in my catalog. It just doesn't fit, and kind of moved on, but always keep it in mind for folks that I think it would make sense for, like you and Ricky. That being said, like, unless you're going to really like play their game the way that they've designed it to spin people into Patreon, and then like have to juggle that in relationship to Royal Road and those two things in relationship to Amazon, like that to me is too many gears in the system. Like, I'm, in addition to the fact that it is not really made for the material that I have in my catalog currently. And also, you have to like really, they want you to like incorporate the Patreon side of things, and then also really push Amazon kind of downstream from those two components. That to me is just kind of like that. I don't desire to do that. That said, there
I'm sorry, were you done?
no. So that said, there's, I think, a viable way of moving people from Royal Road to Amazon, just moving them directly by saying like, look, I'm going to put X number of chapters of my book on here over the course of time. And, if you want more, it is available there. And that's kind of like how I would use it as a promotional mechanism. I think like, unless you want to really do their whole system, which to me is like a lot of time. And again, like a lot of kind of gears in the whole deal of things, like it's just not it's not compelling to me. But at the same time, I'm not making the type of material that is really ideal for their community, and that's on me. So like, I don't want to make it seem like I'm not advocating for them. It's just that it's not a fit for me. But
I'm looking at it, and I got to be honest, I'm not feeling it.
yeah,
Maybe somebody else will like it better. But it's my personal opinion. I mean, and that shouldn't mean that it applies to everybody else here. You
yeah,
should look at the site for yourself, obviously. But it just, I mean, my initial reaction just from looking at it is it's designed to make Royal Road money and nobody else. It's kind of like my analogy I always use. It's like they're not the gold miners, the ones who made the money during the gold rush were the ones selling selling the shovels and the Levi's.
yeah.
Not the ones going and looking for gold. So I mean, I don't know. I don't like their. And then there is a paid option. It looks like, so you can do premium as a reader or an author.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I see what you're saying. I guess I'm kind of old school, I'm Gen X. What can I say? I like actual books. I can deal with ebooks. Those are pretty good. I think audiobooks are pretty awesome, but I don't know that I like this. It's just not it's making me feel I mean, I can see why it would work for certain things, but to a certain extent it's sort of like I don't know.
It's a subscription service for readers more than it's a sales platform for writers, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to have new stuff to read, then Royal Road seems like a great option for you. If you are looking to build an audience, like it's, I think you can load stuff up here for free. I'm pretty sure you don't
Probably.
have to have an author premium account to do that. But that said, I forgot actually that it's been so long since I looked at this. Like, whatever they're doing, $6 a month to do it. So you're looking at what, approximately gosh, almost what, like $90 a year or something. I don't know. I'm not even doing the math right. No, 6 times 1272, right? So
Right. Very good work.
you're basically like, it's costing you money to publish there and get analytics, whereas like for $0 I can put out a book and it makes money.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm seeing. That's kind of what my point was about that. Is that yeah, to get any kind of I guess they'll give you general analytics, but they're not going to give you um this is what you get, the detailed analytics, reader retention. I mean, I don't know. It really just depends on what you want to do. I would say if you just want to write stuff and you want to just post it and see what happens without putting the level of effort, say someone puts into putting together a whole book where they edit it, re-edit it, maybe hire a developmental editor, all of that stuff. I would say if you're just like want to throw stuff out, yeah, this seems like a really good option. If you're trying to do something more traditional, even I would say that it starts to become less of a good option. That's just my opinion looking over this. I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't pay for their premium, but that, again, like for you, if you were to say take the first 5 chapters and put them up there, make sure that there's links, backlinking to your actual release on Amazon. That's not bad. That's like basically like free
Yeah.
blog coverage.
Well, I mean that it's a kind of a way to promote it, put out a couple chapters. I mean, and it's look I mean, they're if you look at the way this is set up, like under premium it says ever had your connection cut out right before publishing. They do automatic draft savings, right? Not a problem anymore. We will save your draft every minute. So they're assuming you're like just literally writing right into this service,
Yeah, maybe you are. Yeah.
which is, if that's what you're doing, maybe this is a good idea. But I mean, I don't know. You can import your existing chapters. Oh, it's not. You can't even import your existing chapters. You can only write into it. Can you copy and paste into it?
I
That's
would. I'd have to
you
assume that you
must be.
can.
Wow. So they're basically assuming that you're doing. They're setting it up, assuming that you're doing everything within their website. Kind of make. I don't know. It's not my thing, but I gotta say, it makes me nervous. But in terms of promoting things, it makes a certain amount of sense if you have, say, a novel you can just give away for free, which is always a good idea to give something. If you can do that, it's a lost leader, right?
Yeah.
So you can give something away for free and get an audience and then start selling the rest of the books, which is
Here's
also, if I may, also something you can do on Amazon, right? So like, say, like I write a novella in my world. I can give that away for next to nothing or sell it for free as an ebook or something. And then that connects people to my world and they'll come back and look at the other book. Or possibly that's the other thing I've heard, where once you have the second book out, you start giving the first book away to sell the first book sells the second book. I saw you, spirits, giving me thumbs up, right? Is that what you've been doing? Oh, you're not up. If you want to come up and talk, let us know. But is that what you've been doing?
Here's an interesting note when I'm looking at some of this stuff. So I'm just looking at like their trending list on there, and there's some impressive numbers, no doubt. Like some of these people have thousands of followers on their account. That's great, that's considerable. Some of their releases have millions of views. Some of those releases have been up for years as well. Like that's not to say that discredits any of that in any sense. Sometimes it takes years for something to hit. Like what? I'm just going to click into one. Let's see.
I saw the top one there was like Mother of Learning.
I'm in the
Anyone?
next. I'm in the next one down. So I'm in like this a virus life for me. So I'm in that.
That's and have that one. Then when I pull it in, it's giving me a different list.
Yeah, makes sense. They might, maybe we're not in the same place either. But, these chapters are kind of interesting. I don't know what is going on inside of this. This is impossible for me to read rapidly, but, it looks okay. Yeah, I guess. I don't know that I can read on this platform. I don't know that that's really made for my preferred reading experience. But either way, like these people are attaining, followers and getting engagement, and like if it's driving people to their work on other platforms, like that is legitimate to me. I feel like take advantage of it in the best ways that you can, and then like you kind of choose how much you want to expose your work and yourself to the mechanisms that they have there. It's and that's a thing too. Like let's look at like Kindle Vella, Amazon's short form writing platform, which is arguably meant to contend with something like Royal Road. Well, it didn't work, and it's going to go away. It's starting early next year. So, do I think that it's good that something like Royal Road has made that methodology viable for writers and readers? Yeah, I, whether or not it's good for everybody, it doesn't have to be good for everybody. It just has to work for the people that want it to work for them, and that's good enough. If Ricky finds success on there, then that's awesome because we know him and we want him to attain success with his writing and his releases. If it is some combination of audiobooks or episodic chapter releases or large full book paperback releases on Amazon or Lulu, or if you want to do, getting your official ISBN and all these other things that go along with that, or pursuing traditional publishing through querying, those are all goals that you kind of want to set for yourself as we're talking about releasing and promoting your work. Like those are all decisions that you have to make. Obviously, like Royal Road looks like you can just push something out immediately. You don't have to know anything about layout, and you can publish there. And it seems to be for free. You could do that. If you wanted more of the features, then you're gonna pay for that. But in that sense, no cost. With Amazon, there's an additional level set of skills that you need to be able to lay things out, get a cover. They try to make it as simple as possible, and sometimes it's easier for some people than it is for others. That said, like you can publish there for free and generate an audience and make money off of it
Well,
in the same capacity as Royal Road.
yeah, well, free is a relative term. I would say, hey, Wise, I'm glad you're back. I hated what happened to you. It's good to see you, sir. Um, that said, um, I think it's relative. You do have to spend some money. You're gonna have to use software. You're gonna have to do various things. But the thing is, you have control when you're publishing directly on Amazon independently on how much you actually spend. So, I mean, you can have someone design a cover. You can do hire editors, do all sorts of things independently and spend a lot of money, or you can just do it all yourself. So like you said, I spent some money. I mean, I did my own cover and layout, but I have background in that. I used to
Yeah,
do layout, so I know Adobe. I know how to use that stuff, that software. But I still have to pay for the software. But I don't have to pay for someone to do that for me. But like you said, you just did it completely on your own. So that's the thing that's different about it is the thing about Amazon too, and if you want to talk about sort of having an hey Chris, good to see you. Um, it's the thing that's nice about it is they really try to make the process really streamless as best they can, even if you don't have any kind of background. And the other thing that they do is they'll sort of take over for this. I know they always say things like, well, if you want to be an author, you have to have an author website, you got to put a mailing list together. But the thing that you can do on Amazon, and I mean, I'm lazy, I'll be honest, I would rather just write and not do all this other stuff. I realize that I'm living in a dream world when I say these things, but that said, one thing I do notice that Amazon will do for you is they'll allow people to follow you as an author. So when you do new releases, Amazon will send that out to anyone who's following you, creating your own sort of, they'll create the mailing list for you. Obviously, they're in control of it. You aren't. I mean, these are all sort of give and take. So like if you're someone like me who wants to focus on the writing side more, it makes it a little easier. Um, and again, I would just go back to the fact that I think the key to a lot of this is to just have lots of product and kind of like what you're doing, Michael. You have these smaller pieces that you can get out faster. You're not doing, and I think that's something for everyone to consider with the novellas and stuff. Because like Spirits, I know you write short stories. I mean, you're able to market those more effectively because it shows content, it shows gravitas, right? It shows that there is a consistent release, even if it's smaller pieces. There's a lot of pieces, so people have a lot to choose from. It's like giving someone an entire meal, salad, dinner, sort of on, appetizer, salad, dinner, dessert, as opposed to just offering one thing. So that's something to consider in terms of promoting. I think if you have a lot of stuff to promote, it just becomes easier because you can then create your loss leaders and all of that stuff. Do you do loss leaders at all, Michael?
I mean, I have given away. Well, here's something to think about. For all of the national parks books and the Chicago book, all of that stuff was developed in public. So my first drafts of those were social media posts, actually. So I post all the pictures, write blurbs. That stuff's all still out there. So that to me, that's kind of like, that's sort of the loss leader, right? Introducing that content in a rough state on social channels for people to engage with. Same thing for Tartaria, right? Like it's on Amazon Prime, the video, and the short story is up on Kindle, KDP and Amazon, and the audiobook is on Audible. But before all that stuff happened, I put out the video for free, right? Like I did all that work and then was like, I want people to see this. And it's up on YouTube and Twitter and a handful of other platforms. You don't have to buy it. The original piece is still there, available to watch at no cost. That's not where I promote traffic to now. It has some gas left in the tank for organic and algorithmic traffic on a daily basis, which is cool. But for me now with that project, like I want people to go buy the stuff on Amazon because that's what I did the last round of work for. And that is helping me find new readers and new listeners and new viewers for the body of work that I have out. And like that, again, started with putting this stuff out for free. So, is that a lost leader? I would contend that it is. In a drafting sort of sense, it's also a rough cut or a rough draft. So you kind of find different ways to maneuver through the creation process and the promotion process. Again, like all of the images, not all of the images, most of the images that are in volume 3, I put on Instagram years ago, when I made that trip. that book is essentially one trip around the Southwest, and now it's in a book. And like that, for me, it allows me to get people paying attention to those profiles and seeing what's going on, but also enables me to work on drafting the material that eventually becomes the book. What's up, Chris? Oh, did you just mute everybody? Heidi, why
My
do you
bad.
stop?
I saw Chris coming and I'm like, can't let him talk. No, I'm kidding. Sorry. It's called hitting the wrong button is what it's called. Sorry. How are you doing, Chris?
Sorry, my
you
thing turned off again. That was weird.
Yeah.
Oh, hi. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good. I was thinking about when you guys were talking, I always come back to one of the staples of what I consider to be a modern way of looking at releasing your content, which is Cory Doctorow from boingboing.net. He does science fiction books and releases them all under Creative Commons, but the print versions are exempt from that Creative Commons, and you can buy a print version if you'd like, or you can just download the digital version for free. And from what I know of his past success, he sells anywhere between 10 to 20,000 or more copies of each book in print from that. Now, I don't know how successful that model would be if he didn't have something like boingboing.net to promote it with. But that is another example of, building your audience in a different way with different content that funnels them into your content pipe for the books, where you're actually giving them away, but you're not giving away the print version. And some people really like the print version. I think it's probably kind of the idea of, Napster, where they were saying, well, Napster is good for artists because 90% of people are going to steal anyway, but 5 to 10% are actually going to want to buy your album. So what do you guys think of that?
I don't think it's comparable to Napster.
No, I was just giving an example of the past music stuff that they were saying.
Yeah, I'm saying that it's not a good example. I don't think it's a good example. But with the Boing Boing thing, I don't know enough about that particular site. I would say I didn't 100% understand the example that you were laying out where they're putting something into public domain, but then also releasing the book. Maybe cover that again, because that was not clear to me.
Yeah, so Cory Doctorow co-runs the site with a couple other people. I think it's been different over the years, but he's been one of the staples of it. And they there's just a blog that kind of does things of technology and all kinds of different stuff. But he's also a science fiction author, and he releases all of his books for free digitally under Creative Commons. But the print versions are accepted from that Creative Commons license, so he retains full copyright over the print versions. You can't, of course, distribute the digital versions and make money off of it, but that's typical Creative Commons. And then so the print version he will sell.
Hold on, let's roll back a little bit. When you're saying he's putting it into Creative Commons, if you're putting something into the public domain, then it's in the public domain.
There's different levels. There's different Creative Commons levels. So one of the levels is that you can't profit from the work. You can download it for free and read it, but you can't resell it or that kind of thing.
Yeah. Right. You couldn't repackage it and then sell it. Yeah. So I don't know why you would put your book into the public domain or in like one of the CC4 or CC3 or CC2, CC1 listings if you are then going to publish it as a paperback book. Like it honestly, it makes no sense to me. I do not understand why they would be doing that. What it sounds like to me is like they really are attempting to use Creative Commons licenses as DRM. And those are two totally separate things. Maybe one of those technologies is probably the better one for them to be engaging with. And also, KDP does allow you to do DRM when you put something out as an ebook. So you can make it lendable or not. And I would say, that's something to consider if they're just wanting to use a PDF release or an EPUB release as kind of like a loss leader to generate interest. Again, that does not necessarily put things into the public domain or Creative Commons, any of those licenses, the CC0 through CC4. There's no reason to be doing that at all, in my opinion, if you are then basically restricting people's rights to use it in some more interesting way, while also then putting out a paperback, which you are claiming you are retaining the rights to, the copyright. Like it sounds a little bit weird. I don't know that we're really getting at the crux of the facts on that particular example.
Well,
This is something that I do generally pay attention to because I use a lot of Creative Commons and public domain content. So yeah, I don't know the ins and outs on that one, but at the same time, yes, take advantage of all the tools.
Well, I mean, I can't speak personally for Corey, of course, but I've followed him for over 20 years, and he's kind of a bit of an anarchist. He's part of the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and I think the way he looks at it is that if it's in digital form, people are going to steal it if they're going to steal it, and the ones who want to buy a physical copy of a book, if they like it, will read it and buy a physical copy. So he's kind of looking at, I wouldn't necessarily say as a loss leader, he's looking at it as a marketing kind of thing where he's getting his work out there and read, and if people really like it, they will buy the physical version. I don't personally see much more beyond that in what his intent would be. And like
That's
I said, he's
explicitly
selling,
a loss leader. Yeah.
Right. And but he's, if he's selling 10,000 copies each book, he's not doing too bad.
No, that's we'd all love those results. Yeah, that's fantastic. For me, I think that when you have built up an audience, because Boing Boing has been around for a long time. You've said you've been following him for decades. Inside of that, you're able to extend more to your audience by giving them stuff. The analogy for the stuff that I'm doing in the past is like saying, well, my rough drafts as social media posts are the equivalent currently that I can do for what they're doing with an ebook release that isn't for sale. It's just purely pass it around, don't resell it, but you can redistribute it as much as you like, so long as you're not taking any profit from it. I would say those are equivalent. The difference is with social media, obviously, you start to cross into some weird territory as far as what the platforms say are their rights to the content and material and stuff like that. Unfortunately, there's none of that stuff is the top quality version or the final writing on it. So it's I kind of think that's fine, whatever. I'm not going to lose sleep over having put out these rough images or writing these blurbs on there. I don't see a lot of long tail traffic from social anymore in any sense besides YouTube at this point. That wasn't the case even as much as say a year and a half ago. I would still see long tail engagement with older media, but that has very, very much faded away.
What do you mean you're only seeing traction with YouTube? Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, so I didn't say traction. I said long tail engagement.
Long tail.
Yeah. So old videos will still get watched on YouTube, but
Oh.
that is to say that I used to get engagement from old posts on Twitter or old posts on Instagram, but over the last year and a half, I do not see that anymore.
Yeah, it is. Okay, I understand now. It is shocking if somebody randomly looks at an old post on here because nobody does. I mean, someone looked at something I posted 6 months ago and I was like, oh my God. Or no, actually like a month ago. And I'm like, oh my God. So I see your point on
Yeah.
that. That said, do you want to talk a little bit about, realistic expectations for sales and how to sort of manage that? Because I
Yeah.
think it's important based on how much you plan to spend on putting your work together. That I think you need to balance those two in some way.
Yeah. 100%. So like, uh, 10,000 copies of a book right now for me would be an absolute home run. That would be just a fantastic to wake up and see that you moved 10,000 units of a book, or were able to consistently move 10,000 units of a book is fantastic. There are indie authors, that are doing pretty solid numbers with their publications. And I would say like tens of thousands of units with very little overhead and no traditional publishing exposure, just using Amazon. It is happening. There are lots of examples, kind of over the last maybe 5 to 6 years. It does occur. That said, the average number of units moved for a book, even including traditional publishing, who has to like keep swinging for the fences, is like 100 to 150 units of a book. That is devastating at a corporate level, So you really have to see what's going to hit. And ideally, like, you're going to have a couple that move millions of units and they're really kind of covering the investments you're making in some of the other stuff that is just getting absolutely crushed. And that's the same thing that we see in music, same thing we see in movies, that there are, there's one hit for X number of flops. And like that said, you know, if you were to, if you're able to get 1,000 books sold, well, I guess it kind of depends, it depends on what you invested into it. We kind of covered some of these numbers yesterday. Well, if you were to sell, 10,000 books at a $5 profit range, well, that's like $50,000. That's fantastic, right? That's really making it worth it for you to put books out. If you're selling 1,000 books and you have a $5 profit, well, that's $5,000. That will make you think like maybe there's something here, right? If you're moving 100 books and you're making $5 off of a book, $500 is saying, well, how much did I invest into this? And like, is this profitable or is this a loss? Is this a passion project or is there some future to this where I'm able to continue to explore writing, as a potential thing, to pursue being an author, right? By extension, we talked a little bit about that earlier on, where it's like you make the turn from I am a writer to I am an author. I am putting out books and I'm wanting people to engage with my product. So that, again, is a mindset shift, but also, you're building your catalog and and there's an expectation that you're going to continue to produce new stuff and put it out there for people. And that when you have developed an audience, for example, like what Chris was talking about with this guy, like he's been putting out material for a long time. People expect him at some point to put out another piece. And, they are safe in their assumption that he will put out another piece in the future. Whereas like again, to go back to the other examples that we were talking about earlier, like we both put out books that were like volume 1 of this series, and well, that's the only one that's out there, and that looks goofy in that moment. You become validated further down in time, but like at that at that day one of that release, volume 1 of the Exploring Our National Park series looks goofy. It's like you click on it and you're like, well, where are the other volumes? Well, they don't exist yet. Will they ever exist? Again, luckily people have stuck with that stuff, and they're getting picked up in print and audiobook. Chris, you got your hand raised. Heidi, you unmiked for a second.
Go
Round
ahead.
1, fight.
No, I was just going to say, I think also it's kind of like looking at it like there's drive-by engagement and then there's fan engagement. So fan engagement takes time to build up, and it takes, effort. Like Heidi was saying with the Amazon stuff, you don't control the list. So even if you had a basic website where, you were starting to do things of interest that might be, in line with what you typically write or anything, and you start building up a fan base, you start building up an email list, and you get that engagement, you're still going to have the drive-by engagement of people say, "Oh, I'll buy that book on Kindle," or maybe I'll check this out, maybe I'll read it later, maybe they'll buy it and never read it. And then you'll have the fan engagement, which is like, "God, I love this piece, I love the work, I love what you're writing. I'm going to continue to support you by buying your work." And so that's a different, like with Corey Doctor, or the Boing Boing guy. That's kind of how I think it works for him, which is like he's got the drive-by engagement of people saying, "Oh, I'll download this and maybe read it." Maybe they do and maybe they don't. And then you've got people who maybe over time have read his stuff, really like it, and want a collection of Corey's books.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I was just going to comment on that as well. We talked about it earlier about the if you are doing a series, maybe I had always gotten annoyed because it's like I never know which book to start with if there's a series and there's a bunch of books out. So I thought, oh, I'm doing a series, I'll label it. So, and it's actually worked against me. And more than one person has said everyone just wants it to be all out there because they're concerned you've written a cliffhanger or something like that, and they want the whole thing. They don't want just book 1. So it was a mistake. So here I am. I'm thinking I might take that off the cover, and so that it's not as clear. And now I understand why all these other books don't have that listed. But we learn more when we make mistakes, don't we? Failure is the best teacher. So this is the issue I'm dealing with. So I'm trying to figure out how to sort of rectify that. And I'll probably try to sort of reframe everything when I get the audiobook out. Hopefully, probably is going to be January, because that was another learning experience, as Michael pointed out. I mean, we're going into the holiday season, and I'm working with a second narrator. So what are the odds I mean, I could probably force myself to do it, but even then, getting someone else to do it over Christmas is going to be an impossibility. I fully understand that. And I don't resent that. I mean, it is what it is. I'm trying to figure out how to do this stuff too. So, I mean, learn from our mistakes as you go forward. Learn from the mistakes we've made. And then the other thing, Michael, you were talking about that I have not promoted this book in the proper way, because I sat down and I told him the entire story of Songless, right? And he's like, wow, so like from what you've listed, that is in no way what I thought that book was about. So, I mean, this is another good point. So I know Robin has read it. I know Nis has a copy. So, I mean, I'm not promoting it right. So that's another thing about how do you properly promote a book without giving away the whole story, without having to sit there and explain the whole thing so that people can still enjoy reading it and discovering it. This is another question.
Well, so I would say for you, you want it to be perceived as such and such thing. By extension, it is more on a surface level this other thing which people actually want to read and engage with. Whereas the thing that you want it to be perceived as is a harder sell. And for me, I would say, like, you know, try to make it a little easier on yourself and go downhill. Like, describe it as the genres that it is, fantasy and Western, or Western fantasy. Like, people read that stuff and they're looking for those genres. So make them easy to surface your release that's in those genres. Again, like the fantasy elements, until you walk me through the narrative arc, none of that in all of the times that we have talked had ever come across while you were discussing your book or just us talking shop. And we talk, you know, twice a week here, and then we have a planning session. And over the course of months, until the last month when you walked me through that, that had never come across to me, and I'm listening to you a lot. So,
I,
you know, that's
I,
one thing to consider.
yes, this is a failure of promotion. So I mean, which is something that, yeah, I mean, and the fantasy elements didn't come through at all. I would have thought they might have by some of the terminology, but I think I've made things harder for myself by using certain terms, like calling these women princesses when they're really more like, oh gosh, what's sort of like
Debutantes.
temple prostitutes would be the better term. There we go, Chris. See, I'm not debutantes. Chris, you knew me. You know me. Give me a break. But anyway, so I mean, so these are things that are, oh, sorry, Nist. She's but so I mean, these are things that don't come across. I'm using terms and I'm twisting terms is what I'm doing, so it's harder to sell it. It comes across, I think, when you read it. Maybe Robin can speak to that. She came up. Robin, you got a mic. What's up, my friend? How's your book coming?
Hi. Oh, thank you. Very briefly, my book is coming along very well. I'm just finishing tomorrow. I will finish rewrite number 3, and then, as you know, I need to go back and rewrite my first 20 pages. So that's all I'll say about that right now. But
No, no, don't misunderstand. Just a couple, sentences here or there. That's
yeah,
all.
well, you weren't the only reader, but anyway, I didn't want to talk about my book. I
That's
wanted
what
to
we're doing here.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to say, first of all, 2 things. First of all, I think, Heidi, that I have your book right in front of me right now, and I think your cover is a great sell. I think it is a great cover. And my suggestion to you to, sort of correct what you call a mistake is just maybe take away which is, it's sort of in muted letters, book 1 of the Songless Saga. Just take that out, and you have a book. And then the other thing that I wanted to say or really ask is really, Michael, I wondered if you could talk about book trailers. I know they've become very popular in the last year. I love watching them. And my question is, somebody like me who is like 100% verbal and not really I'm not really experienced in video and audio. Could I just make my own video, post it on, make it on my iPhone and post it somewhere? Or do I have to go to a professional to do that? And then I guess the last part of that question is, if I'm planning on going the traditional route and I want to get a small publisher or an agent, what comes first, the trailer to sell it to the agent, or does the agent do that after you sell it to the agent and the publisher? I know
So
that's a lot.
let me start at the beginning. I have been putting out trailers for my books since the beginning. So 2019. Just basic little promotional videos. I've been doing video for a long time, so it's comfortable and familiar for me to do, and it made sense to do them. should you do one as a promotion for a book that you are then going to follow through the querying process for a traditional publisher? Well,
Right.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, but you might not consider releasing it publicly, because if you put that out publicly, the implication is that the book is coming out soon. And, you know, honestly, if you're going to go through querying with traditional publishers, you have no idea when your book is going to come out, let alone whether they're going to put together a trailer or do any marketing at all for your book. So, like, you know, that's a lot of ifs or kind of dependencies on that line of thinking. Um, you might finish your book in January, and if you're going to pursue a lit agent and traditional publishing, that thing might not come out until 2026 or 2027, depending on their schedule. That's just the nature of dealing with those systems. And here's the thing: you might be working with an editor right now, and then you go talk to a lit agent, and they say, well, you know, we actually think that this needs another round of revisions. Then they shop it around and they find a publisher who then also says, well, we think this needs another round of revisions too. So, you know, inside of the querying process, the thinking there is like, start as early as possible if you're going to do it. Otherwise, you know, for me, I'm an indie author. I put my stuff out. I'm not trying to deal with those cycles. For me, right now, my goal is to put out a paperback every year, and I've been able to do that since 2019. Starting to get into you know, the short story fiction stuff, and my goal right now is to put out a short story in the spring every year and the paperback in the fall. And, like, you know, I managed to put out not only the short story that I did this year, but a short story I did last year, and then I got a bonus short story from the fall of Tartaria, snuck up on me, came out of nowhere. So, like, you know, I'm a little bit ahead of the game. I have one planned for next spring as well, and the following spring. But that all kind of you have to get it across the finish line. I shopped Tartaria to a few different what are those, like, literary magazines, and I think even Relic of the Aztecs a little bit, but like their timelines, they would say, well, we might be able to run this later on, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna run it now. I'm gonna put it out now, because, like, I got other stuff I got to do later, and I can't come back to this when you're ready and make changes to it and interrupt the other stuff that I've got going on. That's what I value. And again, just as the same as when we were talking about Royal Road earlier, and that being, you know, good for some people, maybe not as good for others. Like, those are all evaluations that you have to make. Whether or not, you know, dealing with the timelines that you have in your mind, dealing with the timelines that other people might have in their mind, like, these are all factors. And I would say, you know, you have to make those evaluations and decisions for yourself in terms of, like, what hoops you're willing to jump through, and you know, how that works. Does that make sense?
It does. Just getting back to one of my questions, though, about the actual trailer. It seems to me, I think what you said is a trailer is not necessarily the right vehicle, or whatever you call it, to sell your work to an agent or a publishing house.
I'm not
Like, I
saying that.
want, yeah,
I'm not saying that it won't help, but certainly, like, it's not the thing that I see. Like, there was that, like, that query.net site that we had talked about some time back.
yeah.
Like, I don't see them having a place for uploading a video on there. That's to say, maybe maybe you're ahead of the curve on this, and, like, you should be thinking about creating a trailer, because that gives them like a rapid breakdown in 30 seconds to 2 minutes or however long you want to make the video, to basically digest everything that you're doing. Um, and, and it's different than a traditional query letter, or dealing with a lit agent. There's something additional. Back in the day, so I used to play in bands a lot, and you would create a press kit, and that would have any number of things in it, basic bio and photos, live stuff, produced photos, information, maybe links to a website or live audio or video on there. But what we would do is, we knew that most people were printing out 8.5 by 11. So what we would do is actually make our press packages like tabloid size or legal size, so that they could not be folded in cleanly with a stack of other people's press kit. That worked in some cases. And that might be the point I'm making here, is that might be similar to creating a trailer to pitch to lit agents and publishers, that your package stands out a little bit because there's something hanging over the edge. You've got this video that, like, oh, well, I wasn't expecting that. We don't see that too often. It's not 8.5 by 11 in the stack. So there might be something there to that. That said, can you produce a video? Yeah, you probably can. I mean, you seem savvy enough to do it. If not, there's people like me. I'm a hireable entity. I can do those things. Chris,
Sounds
you got
good.
your yeah, unless Robin has additional thoughts.
No, that was it. I guess just one more thing that I was going to say is, my main promotion right now is I started a newsletter. It's a little bit idiosyncratic. I basically post it where where most of my connections are, which is LinkedIn. I just happen to have a lot of sort of personal I've cultivated people there, so that's where it is. And I'm sort of thinking of expanding it from there, but right now that's what I'm doing, and it's the path of least resistance.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, use what's working, Chris, you still there?
Yeah. I just wanted to kind of chime in and say, it's this might be a good place where AI might be able to help you too. But when it comes to writing, you can be a really good writer and write a 500-page book, and you can be a horrible copywriter, right? So if somebody says to you, hey, I love your book. Now explain it to me in a paragraph, and that'll make most writers want to cry. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
the 8-second rule on a billboard. If you're really good at copywriting, you can put a compelling message on a billboard that somebody can read in under 8 seconds and make them go off the highway to your store. But really good copywriter, is going to be able to synopsize your book in a paragraph or two that's going to compel somebody to want to read it. So that is a different talent set than just being a writer for a book. Not that you can't have both, of course. I feel sometimes I do. I'm much more on the commercial side than I am on the actual write a book side at this point. But that those are two very unique skills. And for a writer who's just dumped their heart and soul into 500 or more pages of a book, to ask them to explain it in a paragraph makes them go catatonic usually.
Yeah, I would speak to that because obviously I fall more on the artsy fartsy side, as they say. But I would say that that's a level of arrogance for a writer to kind of be like that. I mean, when you think, because you can absolutely do it, it's just that you think you're better than that. You think that your words demand more than a paragraph, and I think it's a matter of over is getting outside of your own ego And I think most people who say I can't copyright, it's because they refuse to get outside of their own ego. My only, they're like, "Oh, I'm too good for that," and that. You remembered that with this idea between, how everyone called marketing the dark side, all that stuff. So, I mean, it's that attitude, and that attitude I think gets in people's way. I think they can do it. They're just refusing to. That said, I always get concerned on here. I know there's a lot of accounts like pushing sort of copywriting marketing posts they're good, they're hooks and everything, but it's sort of like I just wonder if it's going to turn into like junk mail in your mailbox after a while. It's like everyone, you sort of see it and you just toss it. And so I kind of I don't know about you, Chris, but I've sort of strayed away from sort of doing those kind of posts for that reason. But I don't know. I mean, because this is a great place to market yourself. Uh, I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I mean, if we're talking about promoting yourself on here, those sort of copy editing posts like that are getting, I mean, some of them are really good. I mean, I'm not saying they're not good. I'm just saying that if it gets overdone, it just becomes like an ocean of nothing. I mean,
Eh,
are you using them much, Chris? Michael, I know you're not.
Not currently. I mean, I think in a lot of respects, that's where that term, the medium is the message, kind of comes into play. I mean, it depends on the medium you're putting out. If you use, let's say you used AI and you're a writer and you write long form and you're not very comfortable writing short form, you plug your book into AI and you say, make me a synopsis for a storyboard that's, a 30-second long video that hits all the points. And then you go in and you edit that a little bit and you put out a YouTube video, promotional video for your book. It really all depends on what platform you're putting it out on, how you're putting it out, how compelling you need to make it for any given purpose. It's a very broad question.
Yeah, I suppose it is. And I mean, that's a question too. It's like if I were to say, first off, is there an AI I could say dump a whole book in? And
yes.
two, okay, which one?
There's various tools, but you might have to break it into sections.
Yeah,
So, like,
I know I know Grok can only do like a chapter at a time,
right.
which is
So,
too limiting.
if
But
you
well,
were,
here's man, let me
do
throw
you
out
want
my
me to tell you?
I do. I want you to tell me, but I want the second part of my question out first. I want to say, is that a good idea to put your entire book in an AI? There
Well,
we go. That's the
okay.
two-part question.
So you can do it locally on your own machine, and then it's not getting stored on other people's servers. So the tool that I use, I don't use ChatGPT or other platforms online because I don't want to hand over my data to their lake. So I run GPT for all on my machine locally, and I have a handful of models that I've downloaded that I run on my machine. You can then create a repo of your text and feed it in to the model. You're not just like copying pasting. You can basically create PDFs that you load in that you're basically side loading in
That's
to the
RAG,
program.
right? That's RAG, retrieval augmented generation.
Uh, More or less, yeah. It 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 kind of depends. Like you can retrain targeted models if you wanted. That's an available thing too, to where you've kind of trained a subset model on your work. So it kind of goes both ways, depending on how much time you want to invest into it. There's different ways to do it. That's something to consider. So I use those, and like that to me is a good buffer between, like, do I want to hand over everything to OpenAI, or do I want to have no exposure to LLMs? Well, I'm definitely going to keep using LLMs. I use them every week. But that doesn't mean that I need to just like hand over everything that I'm doing to some strange entity. We usually go for 2 hours. I feel like we've covered a lot of stuff. There's a few kind of random things we haven't covered, but at the same time, like, that doesn't mean that we won't get into them at some point in the future, or that we haven't talked about them to some degree in the past as well.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think we're good for now. I mean, I think Robin's point was kind of interesting. Creating marketing sort of advertisements might be something to consider talking about at some point.
Well, I mean, I just did that for
I,
volume 3. It's up
I know,
there. So,
and
like,
how it is the key, right?
I am an explicit advocate of doing it. And it's something that we talked about yesterday as well in prep, where you were like, well, could I create a video for this? What else could I grab out of this information and turn into videos? And we kind of went over some ideas in that sense too. So, yeah, obviously, like, it's something that I do. And that video that I put out isn't only here on YouTube. I put it out on Twitter. It's on YouTube. It's on Threads. It's on Facebook. It's on a few other standalone little platforms here and there that will take video, just purely because, I want people to be aware that I have a new book out. And in the follow-up promotion that I do around that release of the paperback and the ebook will lead into the audiobook release as I get that wrapped up this month and then pushed out next month. Ideally, that'll come out hopefully by like the first or second week of December. That's kind of my target date for the release on that one. So by the next time we do a workshop in the month of December, hopefully I'll be talking about that. And, how much longer do you have to go on your book, Robin? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, well, if what you mean, when is it going to be ready? Is the manuscript going to be ready to be queried? Probably within a month or so. I
Nice.
need to just finish. I have to go back and rewrite, and then there's some terminology, some nomenclature that across the board people didn't understand. So it's going to take time to figure out how to sort of fix some terms in my book. And as to my timeline, my preference is to have it published before I die of old age. And basically, God willing, I have a good 30 to 40 years left of life in me. So hopefully, it's possible.
And you
God, sorry, it's funny.
really prefer the traditional publishing thing. You really want that.
I would like I don't have, I'm not, I'm not, I don't have rose colored glasses. I don't think that I am going to try the big five. I'm going to go for small independent presses that deal with sci-fi near whatever you call it, near future, not particularly dystopian, very, very specific, because I think the more you can target, who would publish you, the better chances you have of being published.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I wish you the best on that. I hope
thank you.
You find the ideal publisher, and then they're able to really push it the way that you and they imagine, ideally, right?
There's a lot of them, believe it or not, I sort of find this surprising, but the majority of them that I have found so far, just in looking, I have a sci-fi group in the UK, maybe this is why, most of them that I found are really UK based.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
There's something about the rights to be aware of too, that when you sign with a publisher, those rights might only be for a certain country, and then you kind of have to start back at ground zero to find a publisher, for mainland Europe, or say Germany, or France, the U.S., and those rights, they might not handle distribution across country borders or on different continents. And then also translation is an issue too. So it's something that I kind of consider to a degree.
Well, that's disturbing, but okay.
Which part's disturbing?
that rights can be so segmented, but really, I've looked at what I'm looking at is the small publishers that sort of allow you, or either they do it or you do it. I think they do it for you. They put your book up for paperback and Kindle on Amazon.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that though.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, the real benefit, I think, for an indie press, right, or an indie publisher, a small press, small publisher, is really that they have a network, right, and that they're able to move your book into the circle of readers that are looking for that stuff. That is valuable, expressly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's definitely something to be said in like building that ecosystem out. And if you're going to continue publishing stuff like that, then you might be able to develop a longer relationship with that publisher or that audience in general. That said, for me, like I publish whatever I want, and it's all very segmented and siloed against each other. They're not. The likelihood is that you might not have an interest in one or another thing, even if you liked something that I did. That said, some people do just buy a bunch of the stuff because they're like, I like your writing, or I know you, or whatever. That stuff happens too. And, getting back to what we were talking about earlier, I think like building out a catalog, having a collection of releases, makes it good for you. As I've talked about in the past, like at the beginning of the year, I see my marketing books kind of spike. In the summer, middle months, I see the national park stuff spike. Audiobooks, obviously, in general, go up in the summer when people are outside or traveling more. Wintertime, more traditional readers, they're indoors. So that kind of stuff is worth paying attention to. But hey, any final thoughts, comments, Heidi?
No, I think I'm enjoying this conversation. Thank you guys for coming up, Chris and Robin, and Ricky was here earlier. Everyone who's talked, I really appreciate it. Because I mean, we're just trying to bounce ideas off each other and figure this stuff out. Because it's not. I don't think there's any one path. I
Yeah.
just think you have to figure out what's going to work in any given situation. That's super helpful, isn't it? That's my random, totally open-minded thought. But God, I actually hate that I said that. I feel like I was just being a politician. Uh, I'm serious. I think there probably are some better ways to do this than others, and we've discussed some of the fails. And Robin, I completely agreed with you. I need to take that off the front cover of my book. I'm gonna probably do that because I'm gonna do sort of a soft release. Not soft release. When the audiobook is ready, I'll probably change up some stuff on the print and ebooks. So anyway, that's all I have to say. I'll see you all next time.
Well, hey, up above, links to the writing and authorship space I'll have tomorrow afternoon. Obviously, like it'll be more broadly conversational. We can even continue with some of these things if we so choose. And then Thursday, Film 3 Space, we'll be talking alternate history over there, and also tech and tools and stuff like that for film creation. So maybe that's a space you want to come and pop into and ask about how to use those tools, or which ones are popular, or which ones work well and which ones might be good for you. At any rate, we'll talk again before too long.